Alright class, so the first part of this, after you have your drawing fairly well convincingly made at the scale that you're trying to work, mine's about, I don't know, 9 inches, almost yeah, a little less than a foot, about 9 inches. This is the front, this is the back. You're going to want to go through the process of making the wire armature. Now, I'm going to use, I don't have really the capability with my equipment to give you sped up time lapse. But what I'm going to do is show you a little bit, then pause it, and then record a bit more later on. Probably going to have to break it up into a couple of videos, I'm sure. Now, you're going to want to have some type of pliers, hopefully. If you don't have pliers at home, then email me and I'll talk to you about possible options, but most people possibly have some pliers. Now, you know how to work with this, and you know how to work here, but I'm going to, but how do you put them together, the drawing with the wire? On this drawing, this project, you don't have to concern yourself with doing this continual line like we did before. So you're not necessarily trying to get every bit of detail in wire. The wire is supposed to serve as a structure to put the oil clay on, okay? So it's more like rebar inside of a bridge or a concrete building. You're using it to give yourself structure, but you don't need to worry about all the detail being in the wire. So you're going to have to work a little differently because of that. One thing you're going to want to do that's different is you're going to want to cut it, right? You don't need it to be a continuous contour line. It can be cut. Okay. So you're not going to be constantly just wrapping and wrapping one thing. You can cut it and attach it. Another thing you're going to want to do is kind of measure and see. That's why I want you to do an actual size drawing about how much you're going to need for some parts. And you're going to want to double it up. So you have your wire. I'm doing most of it I'm going to be doing with needle nose pliers, but I also grabbed some of my thicker flat nose pliers, and these are called diagonals to cut with, in case that's kind of difficult. But so I'm going to want to double up the wires in a lot of spots to make it stronger. So if you remember from your last project that the thin single wire and the thinness of it doesn't necessarily have a lot of strength to it. So you're going to want to add strength by doubling up the wire. Now, you could do that by just like bending it over, and that might work a little bit. But actually the best way that everyone talks about doing it in all the books and things, and the way I learned as well for this type of stuff, is to double wrap it. So what I mean by that is not just to double it up like this and push it together, but to actually kind of like braid the wire. So you have that wire and you braid it together. You're giving it double thickness. So by strengthening it up like that, you'll have a lot more stability in your sculpture. It'll still be malleable, but you'll be able to have a lot more of a foundation to build upon. Okay, so you're going to want to do that. And you're going to want to think about kind of which sections of it you need to put a piece of wire in to strengthen it up. And like I said, you don't need to do all the detail in the wire, so I'm not going to try to make this all the sewing marks, the thread in the baseball, like out of wire, because this isn't a wire sculpture. It's a oil clay sculpture with a wire armature. And so that word armature, we're really talking about it being like a skeleton to build the body of it upon, right? So I have that starting to wrap up. I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to cut, when I cut it, I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail to it because I want to be able to connect these things together if I need to. Okay, so I'm kind of going here. I'm going to start kind of shaping it, figuring out what I want to do. So I'm going to do another one of these over here and probably like 3 or 4, connect them together, and then I'm going to use some loops and things to tie them together like with a circular spot at the bottom. So I'm going to pause the video for a second and get a few more made, and then I'll show you kind of where it looks like in just a moment. As I'm making a number of them, I wanted to say I want them all to be both basically the same length. So I'm kind of starting off by measuring it with my hand, getting it down here, going okay, lined up, and then putting it there. So I kind of have generally the first wire being the same length. I'm not worrying too much about it, but when I'm doing it, I don't want it to be like way off. And then I also wanted to say you need to save these pieces because you may need them to tie things together, and they'll work really well to kind of attach things in a few small spots. So that's something I wanted to say right away. Alright, so now I have 4 of these made. I'm feeling, pretty good about that. I want to say I'm starting to think when I'm talking here, I want to think about the idea of not creating all the detail in wire, but actually making a home, in quotes, home, for the mass to go, right? So I'm not trying to make every detail perfect in the wire. I'm trying to make it so that I can have a place that if you choose to do foil or something, or if you just choose to do straight oil clay, can actually live inside of. So what I just did was I left those loops because I was thinking, I've never done this particular sculpture before, right? This is new. You're watching me. I've never done a sculpture of a gloved hand with a baseball glove on it before. So I'm kind of like having to figure it out as I go, which is part of making art, because unless you want to do the exact same thing you've always done over and over and over again, you're going to have to figure out like how to do the new thing. And if you're making something that no one else has ever exactly made before, which most everything is like that, you could be making something very close, which is learning by copying. Either way, you're still going to have to kind of figure out the methodology that's going to work for the particular piece that you're doing. There's all kinds of techniques, but then you have to figure out, what's going to actually work for that piece that you want to make. So that's kind of the boat I'm in right now with you, so you're getting to kind of watch me fiddle around with something that's a little bit different because I haven't done this particular piece before. I want to do it, so I'm interested in it, but it's not like I've ever done this. So with this piece, so I kind of have to engineer something and figure out what I'm going to do here. So what I decided was I'm going to use to my benefit these loops that I left on the end and kind of start to make circles by joining the loose end that I had together with a loop, right? And then on the other side the same thing, so I can build up the arm. Okay, so that's what I'm kind of doing right now, and you can see that I'm gathering the wire together with those little tails that I left behind, and I'm twisting them into place. So I'm kind of like messing with it, trying to get it as tight as I can. I don't want too many of these big loose knotty parts, because I don't knotted parts, not knotty, because I don't want them to break through. But I don't mind having some of that because I'm going to be adding mass to it. I just don't want the sharp part popping through right up here. So I'm going to try to get it pretty tight, and then I'm going to get another one and kind of link them together to start trying to build the arm into the gloved hand part right here. So it's a little big right now. That's okay because I actually wanted to use it to go further up into the mass and create mass off of it for the glove. I'm just trying to get a strong upward verticality to figure out, and I gotta kind of get these things tightened up a little bit here, so I'm gonna pause it for a second again. So I had one together right here, and I left a loop at the top because I want this next piece I'm doing, to go through it, and what I'm going to do is wrap it downward and then reconnect it down here at the bottom with these pieces. so that I can get like something that's going to be starting to be the mass of the arm. I'm going to have to scrunch it together and kind of mess with it to get the anatomy, but I'm not going to worry about that right at first. What I'm first trying to do is get a basic structure built up. So that's what you kind of want to focus, is the big shapes to the small details as you go along. So I began to knot it together, and I kind of started creating a bit more detail in, not detail, wrong word, trying to interlock it so that you get strength. I'm having like some problems up here, but this part I'm like looking because it's getting flatter and I'm trying to figure it out. But I started to kind of interlock those little tails I left behind. I'm hoping that can be, with a little bit of tweaking, kind of the flat base that I can build on top of, or have it kind of stand up there. I'm going to have to mess with it more and add some circles around this way. My hand's blocking, sorry, add some more circles around this way. But I'm getting something that I'm, starting to feel pretty happy about. And I'm realizing as I'm going, this is getting a lot bigger than I had intended it to be. So I'm probably going to have to increase the scale of the glove slightly to match the arm scales getting bigger and bigger, which is fine. I can use this as a schematic, but I ideally would like to be a little closer in size. So what I'm realizing is I have to do is kind of actually get a little tighter and bend these in a lot more, which means this will actually extend further up into the glove, which is actually to my benefit because then I can add some mass to it. So I'm kind of just always checking against my drawing, I guess is the point that I'm making, and seeing if I'm getting way off into left field. Pun intended, because it's baseball glove, left field. Funny stuff. If I'm getting way out there, then I need to fix it. So, you don't want to have the drawing far away in the corner. Okay, I did the drawing. Now I'm working on this thing. See how I'm working on top of the drawing with the drawing right here? I'm keeping it in front of me the whole time because I'm trying to reference it. And I want to see if I'm really getting accurate to what I'm looking for, or if I'm getting off in some territory that's becoming a totally different thing altogether. So I want to make sure I'm staying pretty accurate with that. So I'm really like checking it all the time, and I'm seeing that, oh, it's getting too big here. And I know an arm goes from big to small, so I'm okay with it getting a little smaller. But I gotta, work it through and keep testing it, messing with it, and looking at it. So the point is, keep your drawing close by, and don't be afraid to cut pieces off if you're getting crazily out there, and kind of start over a little bit if you need to. Another thing I want to say is, me double wrapping the wire like this is really to my benefit, because I'm realizing as I'm going, how is this thing going to stay up in the air? Because you need to think about what the bottom is and how it rests in the space. If I was only just checking like this, which I did pretty good, I smashed it, got it closer to what I want by reshaping it, then I have to remember I want this thing to be able to stay up in the air. So think about, where the bottom is the point, so you can kind of work it through. And one of the benefits of the way I've been doing this double wrapping like this is that I can have holes to kind of connect off of. And so I'm realizing I need to feed some wire through here and create some kind of support at the bottom. So an extra circle basically like this. This is not long enough, but I want to show you the idea of it. Okay? So you want to think about where the bottom is and how it rests on the surface, where it's going to go, how it's going to actually sit and not fall over basically. To make it clear too, I'm going to poke this through here and then start to weave it around this way, paying attention to what the farthest down point is. Now I want to be giving you a little safety tip here. You need to be very careful. When you cut the wire, it's sharp on the end, right? It gets pretty sharp and pointy. So when you're feeding things through, don't feed it towards your finger. Make sure the path that you're pushing it is not going towards your finger, because you don't want to hurt yourself, okay? And then make sure you're being careful where the end is so you don't poke yourself in the eye. If you're using a long piece of wire, like this is the other end, you can actually, and this is what welders do, it's really smart, I want you to kind of bend it over at the end. They do that to show it's hot. That's why they do it. which side, the opposite side is the hot side. But you can do this so that it doesn't spring and hit you in the eye. Okay, so that's a safety tip that you need to be careful of what you're doing while you're doing this. I also want to remind you guys that weaving things together makes strength. So when I'm going through these things, I'm going inside and outside. It's kind of a tangled mess, but I started here, I went inside, then I went inside and outside, so it weaves it together. I want to create extra points of connection all through it. Through the middle of some parts, like right here, on the outside. I'm trying to really make sure that it's connecting strongly. Also, if you flip over the end of something, see how that's flipped over, and the end the other way, and tie together, you can pull them and then pull them together. Okay, like that's crimped over. There, this is hard to do on a camera. And then crimp that, and then you can start to wrap it to get it stronger in one spot. So I'm checking it out here, and I realized that I want to get it to where it's standing, so now I actually tested it out and it's standing. I have a little extra piece left over here, so I'm just going to wrap it up into this big long piece that I have. So the good thing about having this armature, you're not worrying about all of it being perfectly clean, is that you can, double wrap it, connect it, and get it all in there. You're not like concerned about this being like a line quality like you were in your wire sculpture. You're really just trying to make sure it's really solidly together, so it's like a structure that you can work off of. So it actually stands perfectly fine. So I'm going to clean it up a little bit, but I'm not going to get too overly concerned about the, in quotes, beauty of the skeleton. I'm just going to make sure it functions really well. So I've got it now so that it's staying upright on its own. Here it is. It's kind of hard to see. I'm trying to film on my desk because there's a lot of noise outside. And the next piece I'm going to take is going to try to come through here and start to build some of the mass, like of the gloved hand. So I've got this kind of going up here, which is good because I actually want it to be strong. It goes up into the palm of the glove. I'm going to try to build this mass. I'm not trying to, what's the right word? Make sure that, I built the arm, now I'm going to build the other part. I'm not trying to build them individually, okay? I'm trying to build them so they're one interlocking big piece. What do I mean is if you have something like there's the ball and the glove and all that, don't build the glove and then the arm and then the ball and then try to join them together. You're making one piece. So think about building the structure so that it'll be one piece. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Like not little parts that you're joining together, but one giant whole, which means interlocking it together, making it all join from the get-go. I'm seeing a little bit of a problem right here that I have is that this is getting really thick up here. So I'm actually going to have to kind of bend it, keep this here and bend it down over here because the glove is not going to be as thick as the arm. So I'm going to do that. And then when I'm adding this big ball right here will be fine because that's where the baseball is going to be. So that's okay. And then I'm going to start adding something that's going like kind of building a network over here that I can build the glove off of. So the back of the glove will be like that because if you notice your hand goes like this, has a little arch up, so I want it to arch up like that and be flatter on the inside because the glove follows the hand. Okay, so what I started doing was wrapping it through here. I got one of them to start and I went through one of these little loops from the braiding and I'm just wrapping it across and then I'm going around. If I couldn't get through the loop, I went around and again, and I'm kind of got to the point where I'm getting all the way up. Now, this is going to be the spot where I'm going to have this palm of the glove, right? Or the starting of the palm. So I'm going to go up here, connect it, and then I'm going to start trying to wrap a net. Oops, I'm blocking it, sorry. I'm going to go up here, connect it, then I'm going to start trying to wrap the net like a big net that's sort of this shape. It doesn't have to be every little finger detail. So when I'm doing it, I'm not going to try to get every detail. I'm just going to try to get a block or an oval that's roughly that shape. And I can fill in later with extra wire if I need to, or use the foil, or just straight to the oil clay. So I'm not trying to get every little like finger of the glove developed with a specific piece of wire. I'm trying to think about the overall shape. What is this? It's a big cylinder, biomorphic one, but basically, and this is just a big flat disc with kind of a, a thicker part here, and then there's a sphere. So I don't want to think about all the details in my drawing. I want to think about the big shape and get this to match the big shapes, and then I can add all the detail with the oil clay. So I got it going through there, but I'm realizing right off the bat, haha, pun intended, baseball metaphor, that I have a problem, which is up here, the wire that I was going to use to define this is only a single wire. It's not doubled up. And I've got some of these loose parts right here I'm going to have to go in and fix. Don't worry, don't despair if you did this. What can I do? Don't pull it all out and start all over again. Come in here with an extra wire and start to wrap it together and bind it in with one more spot, okay? So don't just throw up your hands and start over again. Figure out a way to fix it. Email me or do something if you're having a problem. That way you don't just throw in the towel and get annoyed and throw it away. That's not the goal, okay? So you're not going to want to start over and over again. You're going to want to think about how you can fix it when you make a mistake. Just want to remind you guys to keep checking it against your drawing, making sure you're getting something accurate. I got that top double wrapped. I had a piece that wrapped up here, and then I took and started a new piece by turning the end over like I talked to you guys about, and then wrapping it throughout. I got this last little piece hanging off like a wire off the end that I want to put where the baseball is going to be. So I just thought I'd pause for a moment and remind you guys that if you do have two pairs of pliers, which hopefully you at least have one, difficult times, is that you can grab one part with a pair of pliers and then it'll make it so this whole section won't move as much, and then use another pair of pliers to kind of twist things and change them around without ruining another section of your sculpture. So it's a way to get a really good grip and change that kind of minute detail. Remember, you're not making a wire sculpture, you're making a wire armature, so you do not need this to be perfect. You need it to work to hold the structure together, okay? Just remember that. Don't forget. Don't get lost in the wire project. This is oil clay on top of a wire armature, right? As I was going along, I had to start thinking about, okay, how's this going to stand again? And what's going to be the front and what's going to be the back of it? And I thought originally this was going to be the front and that would be the back, but I realized that there's going to be a problem with it because of the way that the arm was in the glove. And I realized I need to have more density at the back and also make sure that the weight evens out so it'll still stand up. I'm having a bit of a problem with falling over because I originally had thought the back would be over here where there was more mass. So I'm realizing to make it work the way I want, I'm going to have to come back in here and actually add some more lines of wire at the base down below to make it heavy so that the center of the gravity, if you think about a glove when it's catching a hand, the hand is going backward like that. So for that to work, I need to make sure that there's the center of gravity has enough weight down in it so that it can stay upright. What do I mean by that? That there's enough mass in the opposite direction to counteract that sort of bend. And right here I have mass, but over here I don't have enough of a little strut to support it, so I'm going to have to add another piece. But as far as the glove part, it's getting pretty accurate, like enough for me to what I want to start. It's looking about the right shape. There's a spot in the middle for the ball. I want to probably take and add maybe just a couple spots to hold it more firm, but it's actually pretty solid right now. So it's looking good the way I kind of want it to be. So I'm going to add a few more pieces and then we'll probably be done with the wire armature video here. I want you guys to email me pictures of, in the discussion board, not email me, please don't email me, but put them in the discussion board, pictures of your wire project, what you're going to do, so it can give you feedback on the design. And then you're going to want to post some pictures of your armature so we can see how it's working and if you need any help with that. And then each step of the way, just use those discussion boards to keep up on stuff and also to get feedback. So I'm going to add those next pieces, then I'll record it, and then I think this demo will be done, and I'll start in on adding some bulk to this. So I'm getting pretty close to where I like it, and you can see that it actually does match up pretty well. The angle of certain things isn't perfect. This is the front and the back. The ball's not perfectly in the right spot, but I can adjust that. And it's overall there. The last thing I do before I start doing the next step is see how I have some parts where there's like really sharp bits sticking out, like right there. And some other spots. I want to go in and go ahead and clean those up and kind of bend them in so they're not going to mess with my stuff and poke out. And then kind of solidify it, make sure it's really pretty strong right now. I've really interlocked this whole thing really well. So I want to make sure, yeah, I want it flexible, but I don't want it so flexible that I mess it up when I start trying to add things to it. So that's kind of the last step before you start doing the next things we'll do in the demo. So you need to get to this point really soon so you have enough time to start sculpting on top of it. And so that's pretty much the wire armature video. If you have questions, again, like I said, post them in the video board, discussion boards, and make sure at the end you tighten it up. There's a couple more spots I want to make sure they're all locked into place, like right here. But overall, it's looking like I want it to. And then watch the next videos and we'll keep on working through this process. So hopefully you guys are doing well and staying safe out there. This video is about 27 minutes, but it took me more time because I was pausing it and sorting things out in between and thinking about it. So you got a bit of time here to figure this out. Watch the lecture. This is the lecture part, and then start kind of messing with it and rewatch part of it if you need to, as well as use those discussion boards to engage with. Okay? Hopefully, you guys are staying safe out there, and I'll talk to you soon.